Okay, so in the previous session we are done with the demo, but still I will be going with the introduction. So like what are the topics we will be discussing in this entire course? Okay, so I see most of the people are new. Few have joined today, and few have already came through the demo as well. So in this Azure DevOps, so we will be starting with a service of administrations. Okay, let's say it's only Azure DevOps doesn't help. That's a major problem. Okay, so you have to learn certain services which are really important for us to go through. Like let's say if I want to shift my career as a Azure administration, or if I want to go with Azure DevOps, these particular services are so important for me. Okay, even if you are working with Azure DevOps, you have to learn these services and you have to understand the concept of this particular services, and we need to know how this particular services will be useful in automating through the DevOps pipelines. So I'll not introduce like what is DevOps and all, since we have already covered in the demo. So let me cover the services what we are going to discuss in this entire course. So this Azure can be divided into three parts actually. One is for authentication and authorization, that is called as Azure Active Directory. It's a separate service which provides you a lot of features in order to integrate your internal applications, external applications authentication, your what do you say, user authentication. Okay, so there are so many authentication mechanisms and features which are available in Azure. So that is a separate topic which you have to learn in order to, as an administration or as a DevOps engineer, you have to learn this particular service in and out in order to know the concept of authentication and authorization. Okay, so authentication authorization in the sense just to verify the username password, or a token based authentication, or a certificate based authentication, just to verify whether you are a valid user or not. Okay, the person who is trying to communicate to my Azure, I need to verify him whether he is a proper means valid user or not. That is the main motto of it. And then authorization. So authorization in the sense, I have to ensure, even though if he has logged into my particular portal, any portal you take, whether it is a dev.azure.com or whether it is a portal.azure.com, if you try to log into it, I need to ensure he need to access the services only what the permission I have given to him. He should not access any other services which is not allowed. So I have to take care of that as well, right? So all these things can be managed in Azure Active Directory. So that service looks like this. Okay. If you go to portal.azure.com, remember one more thing. There are two portals for Azure actually. Your Azure services can be managed in portal.azure.com, and your DevOps related operations can be done through dev.azure.com. Okay, so if you see this particular thing, so if you open this particular thing, right? So this is a DevOps. Okay, so we have written some pipeline. We have written only CI pipeline. We have not written CD pipeline and all. Okay, so in this way, all the CI/CD operations can be done here in the dev.azure.com, and all the services related operations will be done in a portal.azure.com. Okay, like if you want to create some virtual machine, if you want to manage some networking, if you want to manage the platform as a service components, okay, compute components, okay, storage components, database components, all these particular services can be managed in portal.azure.com. So how this authentication or how this communication will happen from dev.azure.com to portal.azure.com, we can discuss in the actual session when we come across about dev.azure.com. Okay, so right now it is too early to talk about it. So, but there will be some mechanism to authenticate from one portal to another portal. Okay, I'll tell you the technical name. It is just a service connection which will help you to communicate from one portal to another portal, means one service to another service. Okay, now keeping that aside, all the services will be managed here. If you want to see your Azure Active Directory, you can just type this AD, and here you can see Azure Active Directory. Okay, so here I will be creating a lot of users groups. I will be registering my enterprise applications. I will register the applications as well in order to provide authentication. Why we have to do like this? Because I don't want to maintain a separate authentication and authorization mechanism for each and every application which I have, or a users which I have. I want to maintain a centralized location where if I create a user over there, that user should authenticate to all the applications which have registered in Azure AD and all the services which have uh, can manage in the Azure. So there is a centralized mechanism which we are using it. If you see, right, in a lot of companies right now we are using Azure Active Directory at least. Okay, so to simplify the job of registering the applications and providing a centralized authentication mechanism. So for me, it's not needed to maintain a different authentication and authorization mechanism for each and every application or each and every users or any portals which I maintain. Okay, only thing is like I need to register those applications here, and if I create a user here, automatically he can log into this particular portal. Okay, and this portal and all the applications which are registered here, or the enterprise applications. Okay, so we'll be understanding what is users, groups, roles, and administration, which I've told like authorization, right? That can be controlled here. And then how to register enterprise applications, normal applications. Okay, so how to create a licensing, means like how to purchase a license, how to create a custom domain names. So custom domain names in the sense, let's say I'm working for a company, right? That company name is some xyz.com. So I want my email address. If I create a user here, that user should get username at the rate xyz.com. How I can handle that? If I use a default one in Azure AD, it will give you something like this. Okay, which is not an appropriate one, right? I have to have a valid and proper domains in such a way that I can create a proper names. To do that, you need to add a custom domain and then you have to do it. Okay, so you need to understand some terminologies like what is tenant, what is domains, what is a registration, application registration, enterprise application registration, roles and administration. Okay, users, groups. Okay, all these things we have to understand. Okay, so this is a best what do you say, service that is provided by Azure, and you know like a lot of companies are using this as a primary solution for authentication. Okay, and if you see, right, if you are using Office 365, you're already a part of Azure Active Directory. Okay, so this is the thing which we will learn. After this is done, right, so we have to step into the actual services. After learning Azure Active Directory, and we have to learn about Azure roles and RBAC. So here we call it this as two terminologies, one is roles and one is RBAC. Why I call it as roles in one particular situation and why I call RBAC in some particular situation, because if you look at Azure Active Directory, these roles and administrations are called as Azure roles. These roles are only permissions which are provided to your Azure Active Directory. What you can do on Azure Active Directory. I'm not talking about other services in the portal. I'm talking about only in Azure Active Directory. If I give a permission to this any of the user with this permission, he can do only actions on this particular Azure Active Directory portal. That's it. So these permissions belongs to only Azure Active Directory. So that's the reason these are called as Azure roles. Okay, Azure RBAC in the sense for every service. Okay, let's say this is my subscription. Okay, don't think too much about what is the subscription and all. We will discuss that. Okay, and this is called as access control, IAM, identity and access management. So this is called as RBAC. So RBAC in the sense for every service, you can tell which user can access that service, which user cannot access that service. That can be controlled. So that's the reason this is called as RBAC and this is called as roles. Technically the names are like that, but the working principle is the same. That is for authorization. Authorization in the sense, after you have logged into that particular portal or anything, what you can do, what you cannot do will be handled by this particular roles and RBAC. In Azure Active Directory, it is called as roles, the authorization mechanism, and in normal services it is called as RBAC. Okay, authorization mechanism. So you have to understand both of them. Okay, so what is this, what roles you will have in Azure Active Directory, what roles you will have in RBAC. So those concepts we have to understand. Okay, adding only a profile in your resume with Azure DevOps means it is not sufficient actually. So that's the reason we have to learn these services as well, so that it will add some weightage to your resume. Okay, so they are looking for administration and DevOps, both the people. Okay, so that's the reason we have added these many services into this particular course. Okay, so to make a point, and then we have to understand what is Azure service connection for services connected in DevOps. I told you, right? There has to be some communication from dev.azure.com portal to portal.azure.com. So when these two has to communicate, what is the mechanism that it will use? That is called a service connection, which I've told you. So I have to explain about that. How to create a service connection, what permissions you need to give, okay, what actions they can perform. So everything can be done in this particular session. Okay. After that, we will learn Git. So Git is a main version control system which we will be using in real time. Why? Because we have totally two types of version control systems, right? Why? Because why we need this version control system? Because when you work on certain projects, okay, so you have to save your code. So you cannot save your code in your local system, right? It has to be saved somewhere in the remote location. That is also fine. I can store in the remote location. I find the solution. That's okay, fine. I'm storing it. But the problem is, if I want to look at the code and if I want to understand who has modified what particular line of code, when he has modified, when this file was created, how many lines this person has, how much lines of code he has written, I want to track that. Okay. So to track that in a normal storage, it is not possible. Let's say if you take an example of your real time in your laptop, when you try to open some file, can you tell after few days which line you have modified? No, right? It is highly impossible. Okay, until unless if you use some tool, you cannot tell which file you have created in that system and what file you have opened and what line you have modified in the file. So that is impossible to know that, right? So to track that particular information, okay, the changes what you have done is called as version control. Version control in the sense, for each change you have done, it will add some number, that is called as commit id technically in Git. Okay, so for every changes which you do, it will add some number. Okay, so it will add the number, it will track who has did the modification, which line he has modified, everything. These particular details will be tracked by your version control system tools. In this we have two types of version control systems: centralized version control system and distributed version control system. So your Git will come under distributed version control system. Centralized version control system is outdated and it has a lot of drawbacks. Advantages are there, but compared to Git, which is a distributed version control system, you have a lot of advantages compared to centralized version control system. Okay, so that's the reason we are not using. The best example is Subversion. Okay, so that is a tool which we have used before 5 years or 6 years. Some companies used to use that, but they are also migrating it to Git. Okay, because Git provides a lot of features, functionalities and all. So that's the reason we should also learn Git operations. Okay, whether you are using GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, Azure Repos or AWS code commit, the Git commands are the same. They will never get changed. Okay, don't think that I have to learn again a new tool for other repositories and all. No, if it is a Git repository, the Git commands are same: git pull, git push, okay, git revert, git reset, git add, git commit. All these commands are same. The workflow, everything will be the same. Okay, so I have added a separate topic for that, and we will be understanding what is Azure Repos and all. After that, after you learn Git, then only you will understand what is Azure Repos in DevOps, Azure DevOps. Okay, and then we have to learn about ARM templates. So ARM template in the sense Azure Resource Manager templates. Resource Manager template in the sense, for example, I'll tell you this practically. If I want to create some particular resource in Azure portal, I have to log in. Okay, I need to give my credentials. After that, let's say I need to go to here, this particular service, and I need to click on create container registry. And then I need to pass some entries, what I want to do, and I need to give some name. All these details I have to do one by one. Okay, which sometimes I may not follow all the parameters which I need to follow. Sometimes I may not enable this one, which might be important for my application. So in order to avoid this kind of challenges and mistakes, we are trying to orchestrate. So orchestrate in the sense, instead of doing this particular thing manually, we will be writing some particular YAML file or a JSON file, and we will tell in the JSON file or a YAML file what we want to do. Okay, and that file will be used as an input to your Azure from the CLI or from the dashboard or from SDK, whatever you do, you will pass that particular file as an input. So your template, what is ARN template knows how to read that information, and it knows how to create a resource based on the parameters what you specified inside it. So every time for me, I don't need to remember what I need to do. Everything I've already written in the file, just I need to give the input of the file. Let's say that resource got deleted. Now I want to recreate it. So I don't need to remember what parameters I have passed. If I apply the template, automatically it will create a resource for me. Okay, so that is called as orchestration. So if you want to do an orchestration on this particular Azure, Azure is providing its own service called templates. Okay, so there is a service called templates. Okay, so this is called as ARM templates. So we'll be learning that because you have to automate in some situations. Okay, every time you cannot go and do manual steps. It is not possible. Okay, when you're working with CI/CD pipelines and all, you have to do this automation process. So for that, you have to learn ARM template. The problem with ARM template is it is only especially designed for Azure. If you are using AWS, you have to learn CloudFormation template. Okay, but a common tool for all these particular clouds or any other target is nothing but Terraform. So Terraform, you know that it is well-known tool for infrastructure management. So infrastructure management in the sense, if I want to manage my infrastructure, what I've told you right now, log into the portal, create this, search for this resource, go to this resource, create this resource with all the parameters, that can be done through Terraform as well. If I learn Terraform, Terraform can be used on Google Cloud, Azure Cloud, Alibaba Cloud, IBM Cloud, okay, what do you say, AWS Cloud, any cloud, and it supports a lot of Docker, Kubernetes. It supports a lot of services. Almost it supports. If I show you that history, right? Terraform, Terraform.io. Okay, if you go there, if you look for Terraform providers, okay, you can see it supports so many providers. You don't know whether you will use in your lifetime or not, but it supports these many providers. Okay, it supports AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, Alibaba Cloud, Oracle Cloud, Kubernetes. There are so many things which are supported. Just you have to click on which category you fall into. Let's say cloud automation, then I need to click on cloud. Automatically it will show you what are the clouds that are supported and what are the services that are supported, so that you can write your Terraform configuration file. So this is the best tool, and most of the cases which companies are using it. Okay, you can see how many providers it supports. 1895. In our real time we don't use these many, we use hardly 4 or 5. Okay, and you can see how many modules they have already developed. It is predefined modules. You don't need to worry too much about writing the configuration file. Already they have developed the modules. You have to use it according to your environment, and you have to create the infrastructure. So in that way, there are totally 8485 modules, which is well developed and well designed. Just you have to know what is your provider, whether it is AWS or whether it is Azure or whether it is Kubernetes, you have to know and you have to use this particular provider. Okay, so Terraform is the most important tool for infrastructure management. If you learn ARM template, it is only bound to your Azure. If you go to any other cloud in future, you have to learn another thing. But instead of learning a new tool for every cloud, we have a common tool to manage the infrastructure, which is called as Terraform. Okay, so that's one thing we need to learn. And then virtual machines, you know that instead of creating a virtual servers from your end, how to create a virtual machines in the cloud, Azure cloud. And we need to learn networking. So networking in the sense, I'm not talking about virtual machines in the sense I will directly talk about virtual machines. First, I need to tell about what is bare metal servers, and then I have to tell you like what is virtual machine, what are the advantages we have, and how to create a virtual machine, what parameters you need to follow. All these things we need to understand. Okay, and then we need to learn about virtual network. So virtual network in the sense, first of all, you need to know what is IP address and you need to know what is IPv4 because we are IPv6 we are not using yet. Only in few cases we use. So let's understand what is IP address, IPv4, what are classes, okay, what is subnet, what is router, okay, what is switch, okay, what is CIDR. So all these things you need to know the basics of networking and then you will understand what is virtual network in Azure. Okay, we need to have learn some advanced topics like VPN, peering, okay, transit gateway, NAT gateway, internet gateway. So there are so many things, terminologies which are present in virtual network. So we have to learn all of them. But before learning that, you have to know what is a network first. Okay, so we need to understand that and we need to read about it. Okay, so we'll be starting from there. It's not that directly I'll be starting with VNet, going to this particular portal. Okay, so directly talking about that, that is not the scenario here. Okay, so if I want to create virtual network, so I will go here and I will try to create a virtual network. Okay, so this is not the case. If I directly try to create here, you will not understand what is a network, what value you need to give here. If I talk about this, you will not understand what is this, what is subnet, what is CIDR. You will never understand what is subnet. So let us not fall into that situation. Let us understand what is subnet, what is these things first, and then we will see how to manage that particular networking in Azure. Okay, so that's a way we have to understand the concepts. Okay, so directly if you go to the cloud, you will never understand what is the backend scenarios. So first of all, I would say, or I would suggest, basics are the most important. How many years you work in cloud, if you doesn't know what are the basics, what is happening in the backend, we are not up to the mark. Okay, so better not fall into that situation. So let us understand, though you are spending a lot of time, but if you know the basics much better than others, that will help you to survive for longer period. Okay, so that's the reason why I say is basics are the most important. Okay, after this virtual networking is done, if you want to run some applications through code or through Docker images or through static websites, this is the service. Okay, let's say I have designed some particular website through Node.js code or .NET code or Java code I have built. That code I want to test it in a website and it's working or not. So for that you can use a service called web apps. Okay, we'll be learning that how to deploy your application through code, how to deploy your application, run your application through Docker containers, and you need to know how to deploy your application through static websites. All the three functionalities you need to know how to deploy through web apps. Okay, why we are learning this service? Because you will automate that in the CI/CD pipelines. Okay, and then Azure Container Registry to store your Docker container images. Okay, so we need to know what is container registry, what is the purpose of it, how will you store your images, okay, what is namespaces in Azure Container Registry, okay, what is tagging, how to pull the image, how to push the image. So all these things, how to add a permission so that I can only pull the images. Okay, so you have to manage the permissions as well. It doesn't mean that always you need to give all the permissions. We need to give as least permissions as possible. Okay, And then we need to learn about Azure Container Apps, okay, and Azure Container Instances, okay, and Web App for Containers. There are three services which are especially designed for running your containers, like your Docker. Okay, if you want to run, there are three services. Every service has its own advantage and disadvantages. Means some operations you can do in this service, some operations you can do in another service. So which is suitable for your requirement, we have to use that particular service. Because you know that container Dockers and Kubernetes is the most important, what do you say, syllabus as well. So that's the reason I added that particular services as well. Azure Container Registry, Azure Container Apps, Web App for Containers, Azure Container Instances, and Azure Kubernetes Service. So these four services, five services actually, the most important services if you want to learn about Docker and Kubernetes. Okay, so before learning that, you need to know what is Docker, what is Kubernetes. First of all, you need to know what is container, why we can't we run applications on bare metal servers, virtual machines, why we have to run our applications on containers, what are the advantages we have, are there any drawbacks. Okay, so we have to know the drawbacks as well, right? Though we learn about advantages, we need to learn about drawbacks as well. Okay, so that if you know the drawbacks, you will understand when there is a requirement, you will understand or you will make a judgment whether we can use this service or not. Okay, so don't talk about only advantages. Try to learn about disadvantages of any tool. Any tool will have some disadvantage. Disadvantage in the sense the functionality which you are looking for may not be available in that particular tool. Okay, so if you know that, you will understand what is suitable for my requirement or the client requirement. Okay, because as an administrator or as a DevOps engineer, you need to provide a solution to the client's requirement. So you have to understand each and everything of a service. Okay, and then Azure storage, like Azure storage in the sense directly we cannot jump into blob storage, queue storage, table storage, and file storage in Azure. First of all, you need to know what is object storage, block storage, and then file system. Once you learn about this, then you will understand. If I talk about something like blob, queue, table, and files in Azure, you will understand about it. Okay, and then Azure disk, Azure load balancer. Okay, Azure disk is nothing but a block storage. Okay, and then load balancer in the sense we have application load balancer, application gateway, okay, traffic manager. Okay, so there are so many four services which are present in load balancer. So you need to understand what is layer 4 load balancing, what is layer 7 load balancing. So if I want to create a layer 7 load balancing, what service I have to use in, what component I have to use in Azure load balancer. For layer 4, what is a load balancing, what particular component I have to use in load balancer. All this is we have to learn. Okay, so whatever I've told now, the services are written in this. Okay, this is we have already discussed in demo what is Azure DevOps and all. Okay, so I'll tell about what are the components we will learn in Azure DevOps. Okay, so this is the portal of Azure DevOps. There is a separate portal for managing the DevOps operations. This is called as Azure DevOps. Okay, and remember one thing, you can create your own free trial account. Okay, which will be, they will credit you 13,000 rupees from Azure side, and that will be valid only for 1 month. Okay, so after 1 month, what you can do is like you can go to pay as you go. You can buy a subscription. I'll tell you what is subscription and all. So don't think about it right now. So this is my subscription. Okay, so my subscription right now, the billing is maybe 6,000 rupees somewhere. Okay, you can see here. This is the billing which is added to me, but I already paid this particular bill. You can see the invoice. Already paid the bill. Okay, so this is nothing but why I went to this particular service, because I know what services I will launch. Okay, it is a pay as you go service, pay as you go subscription. So which means that for whatever the service I use, I will pay the money only for that. The billing will be added by Azure only for that services what I've used. So what I used to do daily, whenever I want to practice some particular service, though it is a pay as you go, after 1 month, I have bought this particular subscription. No need to worry too much. Why? Because you have to keep a track of your services, what you are trying to create. And after the practice, try to delete that service. Okay, again, if you want, you can create it, right? So why to put it in running state? Whenever you want to practice, just create, and after your practice is done, just delete it. So it will add the billing only for the time period what you have done. That's it. So you can save your money, and you can no need to rely on free accounts. Okay, and so that you can practice all the features. Okay, so I will tell you how to manage this. Okay, how to ensure that this particular billing will not be beyond your boundary. If I want to set a limit also, I can set some budget in the sense, I will say per monthly I can use only 4,000. I can set that particular budget. When I'm reaching that particular margin for every month, automatically my subscription will get hold. It will be holded actually. Holded in the sense, you cannot create any other service. Okay, so you can still control that. Okay, so there are so many things which you can do, but right now I can tell you only this right now. Okay, so yeah, coming back to this particular dev.azure.com, this is the portal. If you see, there are two projects which I've created. One is for ASP core application, and one is for Docker image build demo. Okay, if you see this, here we are trying to build some ASP.NET core application through CI/CD pipeline. You can see here, this is the pipeline which got executed. I'll just show you, not to worry too much about this. Okay, so it is deployed some application and all. Okay, in this way, we will try to say for each and every language, we will pick one particular CI/CD pipeline and we will automate it, like Python, ASP.NET, Java. Okay, so how to build a var file and how to run it as an application. Okay, Docker and Kubernetes, how to run a pipelines for that. So all the things, we will take different projects. Okay, and we will try to see how to automate it. Every project will have its own pipelines. It will have its own overview, Azure Boards, Azure Repos, Azure Pipelines, Azure Test Plans, and Azure Artifacts. Whatever you create here, this belongs to this particular project. In this organization, this is the project. In this project, you are trying to create some CI/CD pipelines. Okay, let us see what are the services we have to learn in each and every project. Okay, first and foremost thing is Azure Repos. I told you, right, Git. Okay, since we are not using GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket and all, we are trying to use a service which is provided by Azure for version control system. So for that, Azure is providing a service called Azure Repos. This is the version control system which is provided by Azure. So you can use centralized version control system or distributed version control system. Both are supported. Okay, in general we use only a distributed version control system which is called as Git. Okay, so you need to know what is Git repository. Okay, so if you go to this particular section, you need to know what is files. Okay, what is clone. Okay, so how to create a new repositories from here. Okay, how to create additional branches from here. Okay, what is this code, how to save it here, what is commits. You can see how many times I have pushed the code from my local system. Okay, for every particular commit, automatically a pipeline got triggered. Okay, and it is showing me the badge, whether it is success or failed, what went on. It is showing me the status badge. This is called as badge. Okay, and then what is pushes. Okay, what is branches, what is branching strategy. That is an important question which everybody will ask in interview. Branching strategy, release branch, master branch, production, like staging branch, dev branch. So which branching strategy you follow when you're working for a project. Okay, so we need to understand that as well. It's not that blindly we create some branches. Every branch should have a proper meaning, and there has to be a proper way of handling the pipelines. Okay, so you have to know that as well. And then tagging means a release. If I want to release a particular functionality, I will tag that particular commit as a release using the concept called tag. Okay, so you have to know what is tags. It looks like similar to your branches, but there are some advantages of using tagging over the branches. Okay, and you have to know what is pull request. Like it is called as merge request actually. So how will you merge the code from one branch to another branch? For example, let's say as a developer, I developed all my code in the dev branch. Okay, it is tested and it is working fine. Now your team members have decided, your manager has decided that we need to deploy this particular code in the production. Okay, so for that we are using a different branch. Why? Because there is a different pipeline that will get triggered when you have some changes in that production branch. So what you have to do, you have to merge this particular dev branch to the production branch. Then only the pipeline will get triggered. Before triggering that, we need to get an approval from our team members. So how to do manage that? Approvals, merge requests and all. So that will be done through pull request. Okay, so pull request is something where you will add a code reviewer. He will review the code, and once he accepts that, then you can merge the code. So directly you cannot merge the code. Okay, so how this will be helpful in real time, we can discuss that. Okay, you can create a new pull request from here or from here. Okay, and then pipelines. So that is all about your Azure Repos. Okay, so here there are some screenshots to understand how to manage that. Okay, if I want to restrict from uploading some particular files by the users. Okay, if someone is trying to push an empty commit, do I need to reject or not? So that also we can handle through security. Okay, that is called as repository policies. If you go to the project settings and if you go to the repos, and then if you go to the policies, then you can manage here. Okay, what is this policies, what is securities? Okay, how to manage the permissions, what are settings? Okay, what are repositories, how many repositories you have? Everything can be managed from here. Okay, so like if you want to go beyond this, you have to go to your project settings. Every project will have its own project settings. Okay, that you have to remember. And every organization will have its own organization settings. If I want to create another organization, I can do that. Okay, after this service we'll be learning about Azure Boards. So Azure Boards, in the sense, for example, if you are working on Agile model or a Scrum model, you need to have some boards to create some backlog items, working items, and you have to track the status, whether all the people for this particular release. Let's say this is one particular sprint. Okay, if you know the Agile model and the Scrum model, you will understand the terminologies what I'm speaking. For now, you can just ignore. Okay, what if you're not able to understand? So when you're working on Agile model or Scrum model, we create some backlog items, or we create some particular what do you say, epics features. Okay, and then people will start working on it. Why we have to do like this? We need to track the status. Let's say today is my release. This 1 month will be my release. Development and release should happen in this particular 1 month. That 1 month is called as sprint. Okay, the sprint, in the sense, it can be 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks max, not more than that, as per the rules. Okay, so in this particular sprint, you want to develop some particular features according to the client requirement, and you want to deploy it and test it. So to track this, all these things for developers, what they are doing, for operations engineers, what they are doing, for DevOps engineer, what they are automating, for all this, I need to track them, the progress. So to do that, we have to create some Azure boards, and we can create some stories, epics, bugs, issues, whatever you want. It is like a iTrack and Jira. The people who are already using it, you can compare with like iTrack and Jira. Okay, so to track the progress and all. So you need to know what is Azure boards, how to create this epics, tasks, features, okay, issues, bugs, how we will manage it. You can see on the right hand side there is a simple example portal of it. If you need to do it, you have to come here and you have to create a work items. Okay, so this is one thing. And this is, don't put your 100% in this particular area, which is not that important for us. Okay, so what I'm saying is, like, I'm not saying you should not learn this, but don't put your 100% effort on this. Okay, it is not a technical thing, right? It is just to manage, like managers, leads, team leads and all, they will try to handle this. Okay, as a normal developer or operations engineer or a team member, you will not create any stories and epics. They will create it. Okay, you have to work on that. That will be assigned to you, and you need to start working on it. So when it is assigned to you, you need to know how to handle that particular story. So for that, you have to learn this. Okay, And then the next important thing is nothing but CI/CD pipelines. So when you want to build some CI/CD pipelines in Azure, what we can do? In Azure, we have a service called pipelines. There is a build pipeline, which is for continuous integration, and there is a release pipeline, which is for continuous deployment, CI/CD. This is actually in the previous older version, it is called as build pipeline, and in the new portal, they have renamed it to pipelines. So this pipeline is nothing but build pipeline, and this is called as release pipeline. This is for continuous integration, and this is for continuous deployment. Okay, so how will you write your pipeline? Whether you write your pipeline as a classic editor or a YAML file. Okay, so what we have to learn when you are coming across pipeline is how to write a YAML file. So it is not a scripting language. It is just you need to know how to write a YAML file like this. So what you are executing manually in your terminal, you have to write in a YAML file. How will you write a YAML file? What spaces you need to follow? How to write this? That is what you have to concentrate. So by looking at the file only, people can understand. Such a easy tool it is. YAML. YAML approach is so simple that by looking at the file, you can understand what you are trying to do. Okay, so we are using YAML approach or we are using classic editor. Okay, so we have two methods to create a pipeline, classic or YAML. Classic doesn't mean that all the time you get all the functionalities in the classic editor. Classic in the sense it is a template. Okay, the basic difference is, let me show you this pipeline. If you look at this pipeline, it is a YAML approach. You can see I have written some YAML file, okay, to build and test continuous integration and continuous delivery. But whereas this particular pipeline I have written with classic editor, I guess so, yeah. Here you can see this is called as classic. Classic in the sense there will be a template. No need to write a YAML file. If there are no templates, then if you want to customize something which cannot be done through classic editor, then you can go for YAML approach. So it all depends upon your requirement. Either you want to use classic editor or a YAML approach, we have to choose. Okay, once you know about this, then only you can take a decision whether I have to use a classic editor or a YAML approach. Here no need to write any YAML file, just you need to pass your parameters. Okay, so simple it is. That's the reason it is called as classic pipeline, and that is called as YAML approach. Okay, so we have to learn that. So you have to learn YAML. YAML, it's not a scripting language or new language. It is just a metadata. How to store your metadata in a file, we have to understand. Okay, so in the YAML or a template, we need to understand the pipeline stages. What is pipeline? What is stages? In each and every stage, you will write some agent, and then you will define some jobs. Every job will have some particular script or a task. So these are the maximum that things which you will learn. And what is template? Okay, how to trigger it automatically, or whenever I do some commit to my Azure Repos, automatically a pipeline should get triggered. So how to handle it? All these things we will be covering in this Azure pipelines. Okay, so this is one of the example for a pipeline YAML approach. Okay, and this is for classic editor. Just I gave a screenshot so that if someone is looking at this PPT, they can understand what is YAML approach and what is classic editor. Okay, and we have to understand what is pipeline stages, agent, and jobs. Every job, what are the steps? In the steps, what you will have scripts or a task, that also you need to learn. What is depends on, what is template. Okay, so this is the YAML thing which I'm telling you that we have to learn. Okay, so how to write it. So after these are done, we can trigger the pipeline with a cron job as well. Whenever I do some commit, I don't want to trigger it. I want to trigger only at, let's say, in non-business hours. Let's say there is some backup pipeline or restore pipeline, which I want to run it at midnight in non-business hours. Let's say night 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock or somewhere. If you want to schedule your pipeline, that is called as schedule pipeline. So how will you manage it? You might have already heard about cron jobs, right? If you want to create a cron job similar pipeline, then how will you manage it? Okay, so we need to understand how to write a cron job. What is first column, second column, third column, fourth column, and fifth column. So once you learn about that, then you know how to write a schedule. Okay. And then after writing the CI pipeline, we need to learn about release pipeline. So release pipeline is nothing but continuous deployment. After your code has been developed, I want to deploy onto my servers, whether it is a virtual machine on Azure or my bare metal servers or on-premises servers. So how I deploy that particular application on the servers? With the help of release pipeline. Okay, so this release pipeline has to be triggered only when the build pipeline was successful. Okay, so we need to manage like that, so that then only it is called as a complete CI/CD pipeline, right? So we need to understand that. And to run this all this particular time, now I've told you so many things, right? Build pipeline and release pipeline. Where they will run? That is the first question. Where, in which platform they will run this particular pipelines? Microsoft is providing its own agents, which is called as Microsoft hosted agent. You need to pay for how much time it is running it, your pipeline. You need to pay the bill only for how long your pipeline is running. I don't want that because I have so many pipelines. I cannot handle that particular, what you say, cost and all. Then you can create your own agent. That is called a self-hosted agent. That agent you can integrate. Okay, so if you want to deploy your applications also without using Azure DevOps, sorry, Azure virtual machines, you can use your on-premises servers and all. That can be integrated in deployment groups. Okay, and your environments can be deployed, integrated here. Okay, so you'll come to know what is self-hosted agent and Microsoft hosted agent, what is environments, what is deployment group, what is library. So library in the sense, if I want to store some sensitive information like secret files or tokens, username, password or something, you can save it here. Okay, you can say secure files. Okay, in the pipeline, I want to download the file which is stored here. So in that way, you can manage this libraries. What is task group? Okay, so we need to understand all these particular features what is provided in pipelines. After this, we need to understand the test plans. So let's say when you're working on certain project, all the things cannot be automated, especially testing. For every testing which you are doing, we cannot automate few things. Those has to be run manually. So when you want to create some manual steps, you need to write some particular steps how to execute it, so that your what is a tester will execute that steps what you have written. So how I can maintain it? Do I need to maintain a wiki pages or something like that? No, right? So this test plans will help you to write some particular test plans, and in that you will write some particular test, and then you will write the steps. Okay, in that steps you will write what should be executed. So the person will follow that particular steps. After the step was being passed, he will enable the tick mark. Okay, once you enable the tick mark, which means that the test case has been passed, then you will get a reports like this. Out of how many, let's say there are 100 manual automations. In that, how many passed, how many failed, everything will be tracked here. So that you can generate a report and you can show it to your manager or a scrum lead, whatever it is. Okay, so if you want to handle some manual testing and all, you can do it here. So load testing has been removed actually. Azure is not providing this load testing right now. They have removed it. From April 29, 2021, they have removed this particular feature. Earlier it was there for load testing. This service was useful actually, but right now they are not doing it. Okay, so you can generate some report, how many times you have run this. Okay, you can generate the progress report. I told you, right? Pie chart and all it will generate. Okay, we will see in our actual sessions. Okay, and then artifacts. So artifacts are nothing but, let's say when you're working on some Python code or Java code or something, with your source code you will develop some modules. That modules you have to store it in some particular repository. Okay, in order to store some repository, instead of looking for third-party repositories, Azure is providing some particular tool called service called Azure Artifacts, where you can store your modules over here. Okay, in the pipeline or somewhere, if I want to reuse it, I can use this Azure Artifacts to download it. Okay, so that is the reason it is called as feed. Feed in the sense, store your modules over here and download from here, so that it is not needed to connect to the internet or any other third-party repository to download the modules. So if you want to manage your modules, download and upload and all, so Azure artifacts will be used. When we come across our Java project, I can tell you about this. Okay, how to store your modules and all. And then not only this particular services, we have to learn what is project settings, what is this general section, board section, pipeline section, repos section, artifact section, test section. Okay, and then we need to understand about organization settings. Okay, what is this general section, security section, boards, pipelines, repos and all. You can see my billing or agent pools. Okay, so not this one, actually billing. Okay, so this is my billing, which means that for what I'm using, they will generate the bill. So what I'm using is one parallel job. You can see here, Microsoft hosted agent, I can run one parallel job, and self-hosted agent, I can run one parallel job. For that, they will add a billing for it. Okay, so here they are giving 5 users for free trial. Okay, and then here you can see for storage, how much artifacts, 2 GB. Okay, they are providing a space for me for 2 GB to store the modules. After 2 GB, they will add a billing for it. Okay, so if you want to manage a billing for the organization, you can do it from here. Okay, so we will understand this core concepts of it. Okay, so these are the services which we will be learning in this entire course. Okay, and then the last thing is, I've already explained about this, Azure Monitoring. So this is the most important. Why? Because whatever the applications you deploy, whether it is through CI/CD pipeline or manually or through orchestration, you have to monitor your services, applications, infrastructure, and all, right? Networking as well. So all these services you will try to monitor with the help of Azure Monitoring tool. We'll have metrics, okay, alerts, okay, and then insights, okay, log monitoring, metrics monitoring. There are so many things. Okay, so we have to learn that as well. So what are the projects we will be doing in this particular entire courses? These are the projects. What is build pipelines projects, release pipeline projects, and artifacts projects. Okay, so these are the projects which are listed. One is for containers, and one is for ASP.NET, one is for Node.js, one is for Java, one is for Python, one is for Kubernetes. Okay, I have covered almost what I can do. Okay, so I cannot cover each and every scripting language, but these are the most languages which are used, so that's the reason I added it as a part of the projects. So these are the projects which we will be doing in our entire course. Okay, so this is the entire syllabus and this is the entire thing what we'll be learning. uh, so if you have any questions, you can ask me right now. So from tomorrow, we'll be starting our actual sessions. Daily it will be 7 to 8. Maybe in future, after the next batch has been completed, we might move it to 8 to 9. It is not yet decided, but that is a plan. But for now, it is 7 to 8. Daily 1 hour, 45 days course. Okay, to complete this particular services what we have discussed right now. So obviously, it will take such a long time. 45 days. Saturday, Sundays, we will not have any sessions. Why? Because most of the people are working, right? They'll get only Saturday and Sunday to practice. So for them, I cannot conduct on Saturday, Sunday. So Saturday, Sunday, no class. We'll have 45 days to complete the course. Daily 1 hour.
This is Ramakrishna here.
Yeah, hi.
You have only offline or online?
It is
Online or
online.
only offline is available? Okay.
Offline, we don't for now.
Oh, thank
So we
So
will be creating a
you
WhatsApp
will
group.
email this later or no?
Your PPT.
Yeah, PPT.
Yeah, PPT will be emailed, okay, to everyone's email address. So that's the reason we are asking your email address. Please type in the chat room, okay, so that
Sure, sure,
management will, yeah, management will, what is to save your email address so that they can share some documents.
sure, definitely. Thank you, Sudhir.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi,
And
Ketan.
one more thing is like,
Are you going
we'll
to
be
So,
be
creating a
taking
WhatsApp
notes?
group.
Sudhir, one more
Just a
quick
second,
question.
yeah. Yeah, just a second.
Uh-huh.
So we'll be creating a WhatsApp group. So instead of waiting for the next day, right, to discuss on the issues, whatever we had, so we can resolve on the WhatsApp group itself. So that's the reason we
Sure,
create a WhatsApp group so that we can discuss. You can send some screenshots. Instead of waiting for the next day when you're practicing, we can discuss then and there itself. Okay.
Sure, definitely. No problem. And Sudhi, one more thing I want to ask, uh, so how many days you gonna teach it? Like Monday to Friday
45
or
days.
45 days?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, it doesn't mean that I have to complete in 45 days. Okay, if it is needed also, I will extend. So well prepared for 2 months. Okay. People who
Okay.
are in hurry to complete their syllabus, I'm not the right person. Okay.
Okay. Okay. No problem. Thank you.
Though it is 45 days, right?
That.
Spend some time. Okay. So the only thing is like what are the task I gave? You have to just practice. Okay, in the weekends or someday.